What is Call of Duty Zombies? To some, Call of Duty Zombies is completing Easter eggs and learning about the story. To some, it's grinding levels, camos, consumables, and some believe it to be just the third game mode tacked on next to multiplayer and campaign. But what if I told you that the answer is a lot simpler than what it seems? One that explains that zombies feeling we all get when playing, and one that helps us come to understand what Call of Duty Zombies really is? And the answer lies in the form of a question. How long can I survive? Nacta and Toten, the starting point for the Zombies game mode and the first ever map we got to play. This map is very simplistic, being released back in 2008 and being unlocked after beating the campaign for Call of Duty World at War, where you would just be thrown into this map, having no clue what it is or what to do. And here, amidst all the confusion, we start seeing the magic of that zombies feeling begin to show up. As soon as we first see the hordes of zombies slowly approaching, breaking down barriers and making their way inside, we start to wonder, how long will I survive? And it's only natural, as this is just the beginning, the first look at the mode, but it doesn't take long for our thinking to start to change, as you start thinking of ways of surviving, switching from how long will I survive, to the cool question at the heart of zombies, how long can I survive? And now armed with this question, you start a new match and start thinking of ways to survive, trying your best to learn everything about the map, investigating, coming up with strats, and taking in anything that can help you survive for longer. Now, Nact being the first map ever made, it didn't have all these features that we come to expect from zombies, so much so it would be faster to tell you what it does have than what it doesn't, that being a mystery box, war weapons, barricades, and of course, zombies. So with not much to help you on your survival, you try your best, but with each round there are more zombies, each of them stronger and faster, and at some point, it happens. You die. But even though you died, you don't put down your controller. You don't turn off the console, don't you? No. You go in for another game, swearing to yourself, I could have gotten one round higher. If only you didn't train as you did. Or if you would have bought a different door. Or maybe a new gun. This feeling you get of wanting to improve yourself and get a higher round is what makes zombies so intriguing and addicting to play. As this feeling is the one that gets you to play just one more game. So when I ask you, what is Call of Duty Zombies? I want you to think back to the first time you ever played zombies. I'm sure you enjoy the Easter eggs. I'm sure you like one map style more than another. And I'm sure you enjoy mechanics like special enemies, perks, and gummies. But at its core, the main zombies feeling that is integral in making COD Zombies comes from that one question of how long can I survive? While both modern and classic zombies both have surviving rounds as their core, they go about it differently. You see, if I were to ask you, when playing modern zombies, do you ever feel like you're going to die? Do you ever get that feeling of uneasiness? Have you ever wanted to reach a round goal that is so far past your current skills, so much so that you might never reach it even while putting in all the effort necessary? To most of you, the answer is no. The reason why modern zombies doesn't have that feeling comes from the satisfaction of self-improvement. It comes from trying to do better and better against the odds that are overwhelmingly stacked against you, where once overcome you finally feel as if you've reached the tallest peak, just for there to be another climb ready for you to begin. I still remember the days where round 20 was out of sight for me when I first started playing, and while my friends were getting closer and closer to reaching it, I was still struggling to get to round 10. I started the process of learning more and more, helping me go from using war weapons to box weapons, from no perks to saving up to buy them, from camping in a corner and waiting to get overwhelmed to start to move around the map. I was constantly improving myself, and to this day, when playing classic zombies, I still feel like this. There is always some area in which I can get better, even after a decade of playing, whilst modern zombies seems to lack that, coming across as surface level, having a lot of features and mechanics that have unique quirks and uses, but not much more beyond that. And this stems from the fact that zombies, which was once a unique and handcrafted mode, made for a niche fanbase, has now turned into a streamlined game mode, made to try and get as many players as possible to increase the worth of the mode by catering more to the non-zombies parts of COD, the Warzone, multiplayer, and campaign players, mainly focusing on the first two, whilst neglecting the hardcore fanbase throughout the years. with some modern games not including or breaking features that have existed since the beginning, while implementing features that make no sense to zombies simply to try and catch the attention of multiplayer or Warzone players, trying to get more of them to play zombies. Now, in theory, this is a great idea. Having more players join the zombies community must be a good thing, right? And normally, I would agree. Having new players join in and enjoy the very game mode that I have loved for over a decade would be amazing. But you see, in practice, the way they're going about it is wrong. You see, in the attempt to get more players to go and play zombies and try to make it accessible for everyone, they did the opposite by fracturing the fanbase, with the main two groups forming being the classic zombie enjoyers and the modern zombies enjoyers. With the modern zombies enjoyers loving the newer mechanics that skip a lot of the boring parts of zombies, while disliking the slow and tedious gameplay of the classics. And with the classic zombies enjoying the more slow and thought-provoking gameplay, while thinking modern zombies has bastardized a lot of the gameplay with newer mechanics. These two groups aren't exclusive and can have overlap, with people who enjoy modern zombies and find them fun to play, while also acknowledging the handmade uniqueness and love put into classics. And funny enough, contrary to what this video might have you think, I find myself in the overlap, as I can find fun and enjoyment from modern zombies while also having the classics close to my heart as what a COD Zombies game should be like. But no matter if you enjoy the newer titles or are a die-hard fan of the classics, one thing is certain: the magic of zombies has been lost. As in the old days, zombies didn't tell you anything. No objectives, no waypoints, you had to figure it out. You'd spend hours with your friends, wondering how to turn on power or unlock Pack-a-Punch, and when you finally did, it felt earned. Discovering new things and not knowing anything is what brought the community together. Forums lit up, people sharing theories, posting guides, decoding ciphers, piecing together fragments of an overarching story hidden behind radios, with each Easter egg being fun, rewarding, and giving a sense of accomplishment, while still giving enough depth and complexity to take time in discovering. Gone are the days where you were lost in a new map, following faint chalk drawings on the walls to maybe, just maybe, find the power switch. Now, objective markers showing you the way to open up towards Pack-a-Punch and turning on power, where most of the times it's not even necessary, only needing to open up a few doors to reach it, like in the Tombs case. I honestly remember watching map trailers back in the day, theorising with my friends in school what the new wonder weapon will be getting, what are all of its abilities, and what new features the map would have. Whereas now we get a full blog post explaining 80% of what the map has to offer. So with the core feelings of zombies being lost in modern zombies, let's get exactly into how this was done, starting with the atmosphere. A key part of how the feeling of zombies has been lost in the modern era comes down to one simple thing: atmosphere. A game's atmosphere sets the tone. It's a mix of visuals, sounds, and interactives that make you feel something. Fear, mystery, isolation, dread, all these things that make classic zombies so addicting. The classic zombies games nailed this before you even started playing the game. The moment you click zombies, the tone was already set. The menus weren't just menus, they were part of the experience. Take Black Ops 1 for example. You click the zombies button and the colour tone shifts to that eerie orange glow. The TV screens flicker with the distorted footage of the zombies and maps that you are going to play, and then suddenly, the interrogator leaves, and a zombie appears, banging on the glass. It's such a small thing, but for anyone new to the game back then, it was terrifying. Or Black Ops 2's spinning globe menu, letting you physically rotate the earth to select maps. It wasn't just cool, it meant something. You could see how broken the planet was after the moon Easter egg, grounding the story in reality and also getting hints at where the location of the maps were. Even later titles like BO3's Campfire Lobby or BO4's zombie specific menu still had that handcrafted touch. Compare that to modern zombies. Now every menu looks the same, generic boxes, reused UI, static backdrops, your character just stands there like a mannequin. There's no atmosphere, there's no tone setting, no soul. Sometimes I genuinely wonder if I clicked the right mode. And it doesn't stop at menus. Another massive part of atmosphere that's been stripped away is the HUD, the visual layer you see for every second you play. Back in the day, Zombies HUD always had its own unique design. It felt gritty, thematic, unique to the mode. You could glance at your screen and instantly know this is zombies. Some games had various HUDs depending on the map, like Origins, Mob of the Dead, Buried. Sure, some weren't perfect. BO4 HUD was very messy, but even then it at least tried to do its own thing. Now, Modern Zombie just reuses the multiplayer HUD. Cold War, MWZ, BO6, all basically identical. The only difference is the points counter and the round tracker. Even with BO6 letting you tweak opacity or remove elements, it doesn't feel made for zombies. It's just a global system. And this is even more true as when the game first came out, if you change a setting in your zombies menu, it also changed multiplayers. This matters because it strips away visual identity. It doesn't need to be flashy, even World of War and BO1's simple HUDs work perfectly. It just needs to belong to zombies. And I know BO7 is going to have HUD themes, where we get to change to a different HUD like BO3's, but I think that's just a lazy way of reusing old zombie HUDs instead of making a new unique one for us. Now, let's talk about the art direction, something the classics absolutely thrived on. Old zombies didn't rely on ultra realistic graphics, they relied on strong art design. Everything from lighting, props and colour palettes worked together to make the maps feel alive. Look at BO4, it's not photorealistic, but it's bursting with character. The colours pop, the lighting has depth, and every corner feels handcrafted, none of this ray tracing bullshit. Modern zombies meanwhile chase that realism, sharper textures, ray tracing, physical lighting, technically impressive, sure, but it sacrifices style for fidelity. Cold War and BO6 look clean, but almost too clean. The eerie gritty tone that defines zombies, gone. Sometimes I wish modern zombies looked a little bit more like World of War, rough, moody and atmospheric. That's the ironic part of zombies. Old Zombies, a game about the undead, felt more alive than new zombies. To really see how the atmosphere has changed, just compare how different maps feel to play. In the classics, every map had a distinct tone, a mood you could always feel the moment you spawned in. Durries had that cold industrial decay where every metallic echo reminded you of what had gone wrong in this facility. Mob of the Dead trapped you in its hopeless prison, filled with distinct screams, flickering lights, and the sound of the zombies echoing through the corridors. Even something like Origins, bright and open, yet still felt heavy, with the rumbling of mechanical giants and the chaos of war pressing down on you. Now look at the more modern maps like Firebase Z, Citadel de Mort, or Liberty Falls. They look fantastic from a technical standpoint, the realistic lighting, clean visuals, and high fidelity assets. But despite all that, they often feel empty. They're clear, readable and efficient, but they lack that emotional identity. And of course, atmosphere isn't just what you see, it's what you hear. Classic Zombies use sound design perfectly. The perk jingles, the faint power hum, the beeping of the bus in transit coming through the fog, all built tension even when nothing was happening. Remember running through No Man's Land on round 8 on Origins and then hearing the sound of the Panther dropping down? That was terrifying. The best way I can put this is using Verrückt as an example. We get a lot of atmosphere and storytelling through the sounds used in this map, especially when we are in the Thompson room, as you get to hear the screams and wailing of what could be the lost souls of the previous patients, really hammering home that this isn't a nice place to be. It's a mental hospital, and the sounds that the patients make send shivers down my spine, just imagining how they were treated when they were alive. And not just that, but the music has also lost some of its eeriness. Just take a listen to BO1 and BO2's zombie theme, and then compare that to BO7's one. The difference is huge. Again, it feels like we are moving towards making the player feel comfortable rather than uncomfortable, making them think survival is an easy feat and anyone can do it, when it shouldn't be. And that's why when you play older maps, it lingers with you. You remember the way Durries' teleported hummed before you activate them, or the eerie ambient noise in Verrückt that made you feel like you weren't alone. In the newer maps, the only thing that sticks with you is how visually sharp everything looks and sounds, but not how it felt to be there. Another reason the old games felt so immersive is because of everything felt connected. Small things like chalk wall bars, power switches, doors that cracked open, map specific voice lines, they pulled you in. You discovered things. Modern Zombies removes that through over guidance, objective markers, constant voiceovers telling you where to go and what to do. You're not exploring anymore, you're following instructions. You had step-by-step help to open things like Pack-a-Punch and turning on power, which removes the sense of discovery while ruining the atmosphere, as you have this objective task on your HUD without the option to disable them, might I add, until you do exactly what it says, where then it will finally go. And that's really the heart of it. Modern Zombies feels cohesive, yes, but at the cost of individuality. Every map looks the same, feels the same, and plays the same. The classics? Each one had its own mood and design philosophy, from the industrial horror of Doriz to the noir prison of Mob of the Dead. Now it feels mass-produced. It's not about artistic identity anymore, it's about pumping out content quick, as if it wasn't because the maps have fire and broken down buildings, they could easily serve as multiplayer maps. And while a few modern maps do manage to capture atmosphere, like Mauer, Shattered Vale, and Terminus, the engine used behind them just doesn't let them shine. And the end result? A mode that once thrived on its unique mood and crafted tone, now feels sterile, lifeless, and recycled. So with the game's atmosphere out of the way, let's get into what I consider to be the biggest change from classics to modern zombies. That being, gameplay mechanics. A big reason modern zombies feel so different comes down to the core gameplay mechanics. Between classic and modern zombies, there's a massive contrast. See, there's a common misconception people have when classic fans complain about the new mechanics, that we just hate innovation or don't like change. And sure, there are a few who want to stay intact forever, but for most of us, it's actually the complete opposite. As someone who grew up with classic zombies, the hype was always about what's next. Every year wondering what new features Treyarch would add. What would make the next map unique? That was part of the magic. And to say classic zombie fans don't like innovation, well, that's just plain wrong. The early games were built on innovation. From Knack to Verrucht, we got power switches, perks, traps, mechanics that are now core to zombies, and even fun little extras like the toilet Easter egg that played music or separated spawn points. That's just one map. If you look at the whole of World of War from Knack to Doriz, we see perks, wall buyers, the mystery box, Pack-a-Punch, wonder weapons, different enemy types, randomized perk location, traps, drops, even multiple grenade types. And it doesn't stop there. Every new game added and evolved the formula, always making it more and more unique. Black Ops 1 added teleporters, Moon's infinite rounds, space suits, full Easter eggs, the first hint to an actual story, new drops, mini bosses, and new enemies with the likes of the Pentagon Thief, George Romero, the Astronaut, the Screecher and the Napalm Zombies, Nova 6 Crawler, loads of unique wonder weapons per map, and much more. Black Ops 2 also innovated a lot. We had for many years the biggest zombies map ever, comprised of multiple smaller maps which were their own map you could play, known as survival maps, the first wonder weapon to be able to be wielded by 4 players, the first buildable wonder weapon, Afterlife, loads of side Easter egg content, buildables, the first AI companion, permaperks, and much more. And don't even get me started on BO3 and BO4. Every game added something new and exciting, yet they still felt like zombies. Why? Because every new feature was carefully thought through. It wasn't just about adding new features. They had to fit well with the zombies mode. Even when features didn't work perfectly, they were refined over time, always keeping that sense of familiarity when playing so that players aren't overwhelmed and think to themselves if what they are playing is actually zombies or something else. So no, it's not that old zombies didn't evolve, it's that the evolution was natural, thoughtful, and full of care. And that's why non-Treyarch zombies often miss the mark. They throw in random ideas without understanding what makes zombies zombies. The only real exception being Infinite Warfare, which did an incredible job with hitting the nail on the mark when it came to making a great zombies game. Now fast forward to Cold War, or what I would like to call the beginning of the end for that classic zombies feeling, released in 2020, it kicked off the era of modern zombies. Cold War introduced a ton of new mechanics. Most of them weren't well received, and is where the term war zonification really took off. Unlike the older games that added features slowly and deliberately, making sure they fit with the mode, Cold War changed a whole lot of things all at once, and the result didn't feel like zombies anymore. Gone was the 2 to 3 hit system, and now it's armor with the 10 plus hits. Gone was the 4 perk limit that forced you to strategize and pick your perks carefully. Now you can have all of them all at once. Gone was the joy of hitting the box for your favorite gun. Now you can just spawn in with it. Point farming replaced with the flat fixed system. Ammo management gone, just buy ammo anywhere with the ammo crates, where even self-rise went from a limited clutch resource to a buyable item that you can get infinitely. And with the worst of all these new features, one that had and will have no place in zombies, a system that I have despised and will continue to despise with any game that has it in it, the score streak system. So as you can see, a lot has changed. What once was a mode where you could freely go to and from any game getting the same feeling is now foreign to you. It's a whole new experience, and that doesn't feel quite right. You see, while modern zombies did introduce a lot of new mechanics, I want you to truly ask yourselves how many of them did they introduce to expand on zombies game mode, and how many did they introduce just to get more multiplayer and Warzone players into the game. Innovation isn't the issue. You just can't copy paste multiplayer mechanics and expect them to work with zombies. Score streaks have been part of multiplayer starting way back in Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, when they were called kill streaks, but out of simplicity we'll be referring to them both as score streaks, as the functionality are identical. So if we've had score streaks since before zombies even existed, why hasn't there been a single zombies game that has tried to introduce them into the game before? And that is because they just don't fit. And yeah, I've seen some people compare score streaks to buildables from BO2, BO3, or even the souvenir system from Infinite Warfare. But honestly, I don't agree with that at all, and think it's stupid. Sure, they might look similar on the surface, you technically craft score streaks using scrap, but it's all about intent and design. See, in BO2, buildables were created with the map in mind. Take Transit, you had no power until you built and turned it on. The wind turbine wasn't just a random buildable that you can buy from a crafting bench, it was essential. It let you open up doors and power things on early. Or Die Rise, the trample steam wasn't just for fun, it fit the vertical layout of the map perfectly, letting players move between floors and save time. Even in Zombies in Spaceland, the souvenir system made sense. It fit the theme park setting and added the personality of the map. That's why they scrapped it after the first map, because it didn't fit the other maps. Now compare that to score streaks. In Cold War, they basically took multiplayer score streaks, slapped them into zombies, and called it a day. No balancing, no thought about how they affect gameplay, none of that at all. The only exception to that is they tried to make sense of it with the mute injector in BO6, which at least that one showed some real thought behind it. And this problem doesn't stop at score streaks. The same careless approach carried over to other mechanics that were clearly lifted straight from Warzone or multiplayer, without asking whether they made sense in zombies. Take armor for example. Hey, Warzone has armor, let's put it in zombies. Or loadout. BO4 experimented with this, but kept things balanced and limited. Cold War just threw the entire armory at us, letting you start with any weapon, complete with attachment, right from the get-go. Then there's the ammo crate. Gone are the days of the careful managing of ammo, conserving your shots and praying for that max ammo drop. Now you just walk up, buy more ammo whenever you want. It completely undermines one of the most fundamental tension points in classic zombies. And the biggest issue I have with modern zombies mechanics is it gives you every reason to actively remove you from the game with mechanics like the exfil system or the save and quit mechanic from BO6, or trying to speedrun the game with the rampage inducer. And while I understand that these mechanics were made for the sole reason of making it easier for new players to experience the game, but they completely ruin the feeling of zombies, whereas in the old games whenever you died, you always had a reason to come back and try and improve your skills. But in the new game there's no reason to come back, as you've survived by exfilling, you've never reached a point where you've been in a difficult situation. You'll never get that feeling of wanting to run it back and try and go for one round higher. And with the save and quit mechanic, you've lost all attachment to the game you are in. As in the older games, if you want to keep a game active, you would have to physically leave your console on, always making you rush back to play whenever you could to continue on where you left off. Whereas with the save and quit, I could just leave the game for up to 30 days, making it so there's no rush in returning. There's no need to finish the game, removing the attachment you otherwise would have got, which also removes the immersion you had. Like I said earlier, innovation isn't the problem. I'm not against new features. The real issue is when new ideas are added without asking the most important question. Does this actually fit zombies? And if it does, and how does it interact with the rest of the mechanics that make the mode what it is? Cold War, in my opinion, completely missed that step. It added new mechanics without understanding why zombies work so well in the first place. Now, to be fair, we've seen zombies game try to shake up the formula before, and fail at that, but for very different reasons. You know the one I'm talking about, BO4. Yeah, it changed a lot and ended up being a bit of a mess, trying to do too much at once. But here's the thing, even if it stumbled, I'll always respect BO4 for one thing. It tried to innovate zombies with zombies in mind. The perk system in that game was a bold move to break players out of the same old 4 perk meta. The customizable starting loadout gave us freedom without ruining early game weapon progression. It was flawed, sure, but it was at least thoughtful. Honestly, I have so much more to say about BO4, but I'll save that for another video, so if you don't want to miss out, make sure to hit that subscribe button. There are so many cool gameplay mechanics that I could go on and on about which ruined the flow of zombies, but to not make this a 10-hour video, I think we should leave it here and I'll make full vids talking about some of these mechanics which I don't like that much in future videos. So what's my real issue with modern zombies when it comes to the gameplay? It's not that being different automatically makes it bad, it's that in trying to reinvent the mode so quickly, they've abandoned core mechanics that were fine-tuned over the years. And with so many new features thrown in all at once, we've ended up in this never-ending game of cat and mouse that still plagues the games today. That is balance. When we talk about game balance, one thing we have to consider is difficulty. How hard do we actually want the zombies experience to be for both new and experienced players, which is what we call the learning curve. Now, I don't think zombie needs to be brutally hard to be fun or addicting, but I do think there needs to be some level of effort required, something that makes you feel like your time you take in learning being useful and fulfilling, and the classics nailed that balance. They weren't insanely hard, but for new players, zombies could feel overwhelming at first. You spawn in with just a pistol, 500 points, and one simple task: survive against what feels like endless zombies. Each round gets faster, tougher, and more chaotic. If you've seen my Pro vs New series, you know what I mean. We take someone completely new to zombies and watch them try to survive. And just like when I first started, it's a fight to even make it to round 10, let alone round 20. But that's the magic of classic zombies. The learning curve isn't steep like Dark Souls, it's steady. After a few matches, you start picking things up. You learn knifing early on gives you most points, that the blue drink called Quick Revive can bring you back to life 3 times, well, unless you're playing Cold War, or that the mystery box can give you better guns for only 950 points. With each run, you get a little smarter. You learn spawn locations, training spots, and map layouts, and the more you learn, the further you go, until eventually you hit that wall, where the game just outpaces you. You die. But in dying, you learn. That cycle of trial and error, dying, improving, pushing further, is what makes zombies so insanely replayable. It's fun for new players, but it also creates a skill ceiling for veterans. That's why we still see players today setting crazy speedruns and high round records. There's always room to get better. Now compare that to modern zombies. Today's games hold your hand every step of the way. We've got modes designed to guide new players through the experience, like directed mode or the new training camp in BO7. Even basic exploration has been stripped down, objective markers literally showing you where to turn on power or pack a punch. The sense of discovery? Gone. And it doesn't stop there. Modern mechanics indirectly make things even easier. Armor that lets you tank hits, zombies damage scaling that keeps enemies weaker, infinite self-revive, score streaks, overpowered perks, loadouts, ammo crates, the list goes on. It's to the point where I, someone who got the high round war record on Terminus, managed it with almost no high rounding experience, the only real challenge being time. End crashes, since the new games are online only. What used to take skill can now be done by absolutely anyone with enough free time. Even the new player from my Pro vs New series, the same person who struggled to reach round 10 on BO2, hit round 20 on Cold War on their first try, and that's without even using half of the new mechanics like armor, score streaks, or even field upgrades. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying zombies should be brutally hard, but when a game spoon feeds you everything, treats you like a newborn, and removes your freedom to explore or figure things out for yourself, the fun starts to fade. When you can tank dozens of hits, self-revive him infinitely, and buy ammo whenever you want, dying loses all meaning. The survival element disappears. You stop improving because there's nothing to improve. You camp, pop score streaks, hit round 30, exfil, and call it a day. And sure, that's fine for a quick game here and there, but it doesn't make you want to come back. That feeling of, I can do better next time, gone. Instead of learning new strats or mastering movement, your skills boil down to farming scrap faster or finding the best way to cheese score streaks. Meanwhile, over a decade later, people are still discovering new strategies and optimizations in the older games, still pushing those classic systems to the limits. And that's the difference. Classic zombies challenge you to get better. Modern zombies, though, make sure you never really have to.
Now let's talk story-wise, but instead of me, I'ma hand it over to someone who knows a lot more about it than I do.
What's crackin' like a mix mackin'? My name is Simple, or help me spell backwards, and what an honor it is to be featured here on the Starkly Plays YouTube channel. Thank you for having me. I won't be too long, I promise. But Starkly asked me to come on as a resident lore nerd and comment on the story, and I have quite a bit to say on this, so I'll start where it all started. The year was 2001. I was just born. Just kidding. When World at War first came out in 2008, no one knew how big the game would be, let alone if there would even be a story. As far as we knew, this game mode was 4 unnamed Marines fighting in a bunker. As it would turn out, not only would there be a story, but it would turn into one of the most confusing and complicated stories in all of gaming. Thing is, the story back then had more questions than answers, because everything was being made up as it went along. There was no expectation for what this story should be or would be whatsoever. I'll describe this best by bringing up the concept of an ARG. For those of you who are unaware, an ARG is an alternate reality game in which online detectives of sorts try to solve clues and puzzles laid out by a storyteller to solve the overall plot of the story being told. Think of it as an Easter egg, but in real life, but also told through ciphers and hidden messages. And this is what the zombie story was for years. It was essentially an ARG where the players tried to solve the Easter eggs, find radios, read writing on the walls for clues, solve ciphers, etc. And this made the zombie story get very perplexing, but there was also genuine fan interaction, and you felt like you were a part of the story being told. Subreddits were pumped full of lore theories, some of which came true, some didn't, and thousands of people arguing in replies. This also got you more invested in the game itself, as you would be driven to play the game, find the clues, get online to try and solve them, and then play more of the game to solve the Easter eggs, find the radios, anything that could let you contribute to solving the story that was unfolding while surrounded by the atmosphere of the map you're in, which really immersed you in this world. It was told through environmental storytelling, something that is extremely important when creating a visual story. In comparison, the modern zombie story, while I'll be honest, I enjoy it a lot, feels hollow and weak due to many changes that have made the game feel less interactive, less thought out somehow, and less important, due to the making of the mode being more accessible. Gone are the days of ciphers and trying to solve them. Gone are the days of internet theory crafting that made you want to invest time into this mode so that you yourself can get the story. Gone are the days where we as the audience felt like we not only had a role in the story, but we directly contributed to it. We were the detectives solving the clues and piecing together the events that transpired, and now we are the audience, casually awaiting the next episode of a show that should have ended many seasons ago. The modern zombie story got rid of almost every bit of secrecy that was once there. The intel system straight up tells you the story in Cold War, and sure, you have to find the pieces of intel, and as a lore nerd, they're helpful for remembering certain events or fleshing out the story, but they should not be used as the main way to tell your story. You have no reason as a player to seek out what's happening, or to discover hidden meanings, or to theorize, because the story is just simply told to you. This is one of the biggest flaws with not having a dedicated crew. The characters in Ultimus or Premise were important or essential pieces to the zombie story because you'd hear them talk to each other about the events taking place in real time, as if they're just regular people living through the scenario along with you. In Cold War Zombies, this is stripped away, and you're told the story through people like Weaver or Peck on a headset that feels less like watching someone experience the events and more like someone narrating over them. In Black Ops 6, they began to do something that I really don't appreciate whatsoever, which is the COD blog posts. Now, these have been a thing for years now, but a key issue within the BO6 lifecycle is that pieces of the zombie story were literally told to us in blog posts and nothing more. Not in-game radios, no intel, no character dialogue. A perfect example of this would be the Citadel de Mor Owl and his 4 bastard knight sons. Their story is not told through environmental storytelling, and it's not told through characters, or even the main Easter egg. Their story gets told through a blog post outside of the game. Then there's the bad writing. With the modern story, characters have basic and boring personalities and dialogue, if the game even has any at all, to the point where it's sometimes bordering on genuine stupidity within the writing. One perfect example of bad writing I can personally point to off the top of my head is when Ava Jansen in MWZ says, I know this element down to its protons. When speaking about Ethereum, the reason this line is so blatantly dumb is because Ava is supposed to be a top-level physicist who specializes in this specific element. She's supposed to be the leading authority on Ethereum, but her big line to showcase what she knows about it? It's the most basic form of knowledge you need to even know whether or not something even is an element in the first place. This may seem harsh to keep picking apart at one line, but it's lines like this that pull me out of the immersion in general, for every game. If the writers themselves don't care enough to check themselves and write something more intelligent for a character than basic knowledge, then why would I as a player ever care about these characters or the story being told? Plus, it doesn't help that the COD Zombies story has been all over the place more than the past. In classic Zombies, the story might have been confusing, but it told a cohesive story. World at War and BL1 tell the events of Group 935, and Richtofen and Max is fighting for control of the Aether and Agartha. BO2 picks up right after this left off, telling its events of what happens after the Earth gets shattered at the end of BO1 Moon. BO3 picks up in a different timeline and fleshes out the background lore and what's going on in the bigger picture, and BO4 picks up right after that and delivers a decent ending. In Modern Zombies, though, we have Chaos. Oh wait, but then that gets scrapped out for the Dark Aether in Cold War. And Cold War tells the story of Requiem shutting down rifts to lead to another dimension. Vanguard tells the story of the Dark Aether and how its elder gods and societies have been existing and what it is they do. MWZ tells the story of Terminus Outcomes. No, not that Terminus. And Operation Devil, after Urzikstan gets turned into a zombified war zone, but then BO6 picks up where Cold War left off after 5 years of the characters being on Terminus Island. Yes, that one. And goes down a story of them trying to fight Richtofen, where now, while in the Dark Aether, we're following variants of the original crew and the Requiem crew as they try to seemingly fight the Shadowsmith guys. It's like they can't pick a lane, which leads to exactly what's happened. A bunch of pieces of an overall story being spliced together at random for what we keep getting told is an eventual payoff. My proposal is this. If you aren't going to give us the Internet Detective ARG feeling anymore, then that means you're telling us a story, not us discovering one. So write a cohesive story and write characters we care about and make it feel like you care about them too. If you want to make it all jumbled and hard to understand so fans can piece things together, then stop using blog posts and intel systems to spoon feed a story to a community who stared at walls for 4 hours, no-clipped out of the map, and solved ciphers to get what they wanted. Pick a lane.
A special thank you to Empel for helping me out with this part of the video. Go and check him out, links will be in the description, and let's continue on.
Nostalgia. That's the word modern zombie enjoyers love to throw around whenever someone criticizes their new games. They use it like a shield, as if any negative opinion about modern zombies automatically comes up from living in the past, while ignoring the valid criticism from players who've grown up with this mode over the decade. And honestly, can you blame those players? Imagine your favourite TV show, movie series, or book, something that's been your go-to comfort for years. A world you've connected deeply with, where you've met people, made friends, joined a community that work together to solve mysteries together, a world you revisit over and over and over again because it means something to you. Now imagine the creators suddenly decide to change it, not to improve it, but to make it more accessible, to make it more profitable. And in the process, they watered down what made it special, alienate the dedicated fanbase, and completely ignore the people who kept it alive for all of those years. And then somebody turns around to you and says, dude, you're just being nostalgic. You'd be frustrated, and honestly, rightfully so. Now, I'll be real. When making this video, even I had to acknowledge the nostalgia bias I have. I grew up with the classics, and yeah, that definitely shapes how I see the newer games. But nostalgia alone isn't what's driving frustration in the community. The real issue, the core of everything we've talked about, is care, or rather, the lack of it. Modern Zombies has shifted from being a unique experience into something overly streamlined and accessible, trying to appeal as many players as they can from other modes. And in doing so, it's introduced mechanics that completely clash with what Zombies was built on. Every new release feels like the same recycled product. No real innovation, no meaningful direction, and no love for the long-term fans who've been here since day one. It's no wonder so many players have gone back to the old games, or stayed with them, or even just left the mode entirely. And honestly, that makes me sad. So is nostalgia part of why some people hate modern zombies? Yeah, for some, sure. But is it fair to say that all criticism that is directed at the new games come from nostalgia? Of course not. There are real issues with the games that need to be pointed out, and just because we do that, doesn't mean we are being nostalgic. But here's the thing. I think Activision are the real nostalgia chasers. They're the ones using nostalgia to sell us the same experience over and over again. They dangle our favourite characters, old maps and familiar names in front of us, not because they care about their legacy, because they know we'll buy it. Like, I know a few zombie players who've bought the Vault Edition simply because of the Ted skin they waved in our face. And as much as I hate to admit it, I'm one of those people. I've already pre-ordered BO7, hoping that Curse Mode will finally be the return to form we've all been waiting for. That maybe, just maybe, we'll get that true classic zombies experience again. But until then, only time will tell. So, what do I think the future of zombie looks like? Speaking as someone who's been here since the beginning, someone who loves the classics but still found some bits of enjoyment in the modern era, I'll be completely honest with you. If you're a die-hard classic zombies fan, my advice is simple. Stick with the classics. Because that feeling, the one we all remember, that sense of surviving against all odds, of learning, improving and mastering the game one step at a time, that feeling is completely gone. The new era of zombies is built around accessibility. Streamlined, simplified and designed to appeal to everyone. But trying to cater to all players, it ends up truly catering to none. Will you still find enjoyment in future zombie titles? Yeah, probably. If you love the mode at its core, there's always some fun to be had. It's great for jumping in for a quick session, playing for 30 minutes, shutting your brain off, and just zoning out. As a quick escape, it works. But if you're looking for that unique handcrafted experience, the kind of game that challenged you to get better, that pulled you in with mystery, atmosphere, and depth, and making you want to replay it over and over again, then you're likely to be disappointed. So where do we go from here? Honestly, the only way to enjoy modern zombies is to stop looking back. Not to forget the classics or pretend they don't exist, rather to accept that they were their own time, their own magic, and instead of constantly comparing new games to the old, we should really focus on pushing the mode forward, trying to improve what a mess we've gotten ourselves into, and while not perfect, I do think we are heading in a better direction than before. We should help try and make zombies find its identity again. Not by copying other modes, but by being unique and being the experience that first drew us all in, because that's what made zombies special. And if there's any hope for the future of this mode, it's in remembering why we fell in love with it in the first place. In conclusion, this video wasn't made out of hate for modern zombies or the developers. It's not about putting the classics on a pedestal either. It's about the game mode I've loved for years, the magic zombies once had. That magic might not need to return exactly how it was in the classics, but I do want it to return. So this is my message to the community, the developers, the executives, and everyone watching. Zombies might be at a low point right now. We might be going through a rough patch. But as someone who's seen this mode at its best and at its worst, I truly believe this community will always persist. It might not happen today. It might not happen in the next few years. Hell, it might not even happen within the Call of Duty franchise. But that unique zombies feeling, the one that made this mode so special, will return, in one form or another. And I'll be waiting for that day. The day the magic finally returns to us. To everyone watching, thank you. Thank you for being part of this community, a community that I've been in since I was 9 years old, and one that deserves the respect from Activision for being so committed. Because this isn't about how modernizing zombies ruined it. It's about how corporate greed, over-streamlining, and the loss of creative care pushed the mode away from what it once was. What used to be carefully crafted gem has become a yearly product, full of bugs, overpriced bundles, and shallow design. Patched just enough to hold out until the next release. I hope you take this video as a critique, not against zombies evolving, but against how it has evolved, with the wrong mindset. And as always, if you've enjoyed this video, leave a like, drop a comment, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Bye!